Good evening and welcome to the news and sport from UTV Live. Police officers have fired a number of shots after a car was driven at them in West Belfast. The officers were on foot patrol on the Glen Road when the incident happened at around 11 o'clock this morning. They were walking towards a Volkswagen Golf car when the driver suddenly sped towards them. They fired a number of shots, but there are no reports of any injuries. The police ombudsman is investigating the circumstances of the shooting. Detectives are appealing for anyone who saw the car in the area to contact them. Symbols of peace have replaced UDA images in a mural beside Harryville Church in Ballymena. The new-look mural outside Our Lady's Church is the result of groundbreaking cross-community talks in the town. The bid to improve relations in the area was reflected in the unveiling ceremony, which saw the parish priest Paul Simons alongside loyalist representatives, including the UPRG's Tommy Kirkham. It's part of a programme which has also involved the removal of tricolours in other parts of Ballymena. Meanwhile, several people have been treated in hospital following trouble in Ballymena overnight. They were hurt when fighting broke out in the Dury Road estate just after midnight. The police were called to the scene at Camberwell Way at around 12:30 and found a large crowd of people involved in the disturbance. A couple of hours later, a petrol bomb was thrown at a house in Victoria Park. The police put out the fire and no one was hurt. The people who were treated in hospital weren't seriously injured. A number of people have been taken to hospital following a serious accident on the M2 motorway on the outskirts of Belfast. 2 cars were involved in the crash on the northbound carriageway near Sandyknowes roundabout. It's not yet known if anybody has been seriously hurt. A 15-year-old boy who punched an elderly publican during an alleged robbery has been released on bail at the High Court. The court heard that the teenager was with 2 other men when he attacked the 84-year-old during a raid on the corner bar in Coch last week. He's from Dungannon but can't be identified because of his age. He's charged with theft and attempted robbery. Releasing him this morning, the judge said the circumstances suggested he was influenced by the other men. A shot has been fired during an armed robbery at a hotel in Belfast. 2 men armed with a handgun threatened staff in the Days Hotel in Hope Street at around 7 o'clock last night before firing the shot. No one was injured. The robbers made off with an undisclosed sum of cash in a waiting red car, which the police believe may have been a Nissan. UTV has had another successful night at the annual Irish Press Awards held at the Europa Hotel in Belfast. Our political correspondent Ken Reid won News Broadcaster of the Year for the 2nd year running, while Insight won the News Current Affairs Programme of the Year. Blaine Scott won Cameraman of the Year and 5 of our reporters won commendations. And that's the news. Now over to Gary Gillespie for a roundup of the day's sport. Gary.
Thanks, Gillian. And we kick off with soccer. And the Belfast Big Two will contest this year's nationwide Irish Cup final. This afternoon's semi-finals ended with a 3-1 victory for Linfield against Bangor at Seaview. And in the second semi at Windsor Park, Glentoran saw off the challenge from Larne with a 2-0 win. Action from the Glens and Larne coming up, but first, Linfield step closer to that league and cup double.
David Jeffrey's Carnegie Premier League champions were hot favourites to see off their first division opponents, with Michael Galt finding his range after 90 seconds. The Seasiders started nervously and were a goal down after 3 minutes when an innocuous cross from Tim Mounsey was met by the diving Jackie Kerr, the ball deflecting past the Bangor man's own keeper. What was a severe setback soon became something more of a catastrophe as Jim Irvine's free kick was turned in by Peter Thompson. The striker's 41st goal of the season, Linfield 2-0 ahead after just 7 minutes. Bangor manager George Dunlop played in 4 finals as a Linfield player. However, his side's semi-final challenge looked over before it had even begun. However, the best part of an hour and a half remained as Glenn Ferguson threatened to make it 3-0 at the break. Jamie Mulgrew then chancing his luck as the Blues continued to create opportunities. Not that it was all one-way traffic, but McCluskey's effort was one of the few Bangor chances. At the other end, Ryan Brown was the busier of the 2 keepers, this time denying Kearney to leave it 2-0 at the interval. Bangor's team talk no doubt reminded the players of the 2 Premier League scalps taken en route to the semi. Perhaps their luck was changing as Brown denied Aidan O'Kane a golden opportunity. But that good fortune was short-lived. Thompson was already on the score sheet. It was almost odds-on that he would be joined by fellow striker Glenn Ferguson, and so it proved as the Blues booked their place in the final. Linfield complacency, or else a Bangor revival, led to a couple of close shaves, with Tim Mounsey almost scoring the game's second OG. Michael Galt achieving what neither Mounsey or the Bangor forwards were capable of, as he gave the North Down men a consolation goal, with the game ending a comfortable 3-1 Linfield victory.
And Glentoran made it through to the final as well, after their 2-0 victory over Larne. In the neutral surroundings of Windsor Park, Glentoran started favourites against Larne. There wasn't a lot of excitement in the opening stages, but Larne did cause a few flutters in the Glen's defence early on. However, Glentoran came more into the game on the half-hour mark, without making the chance count. But with manager Paul Miller urging his side on, Glentoran finally went ahead with a goal which owed a lot to hesitation in the Larne defence. With the ball moving around the penalty area, it was eventually a half-hit Gary Brown shot which went under the keeper and into the Larne net. Philip Simpson netted the Glen's second in the second half to make sure of that final place. And we'll have a roundup of the action and reaction from the semi-finals on Sport on Sunday at 6:30 tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Belfast Giants are on course for a double celebration this season after qualifying for the playoff finals next weekend, and they did it in some style, beating Coventry Blaze by 7-3. Coventry were last year's league winners, but it was this year's newly crowned champions who scored first with just 1.5 minutes gone. Giants forward Curtis Huppy claiming the first goal of what was a valuable hat-trick for his side. A lengthy delay for repairs to the plexiglass didn't slow the Giants' momentum, and they went 2 up thanks to Sean Skihar. Although Coventry did hit back through Dan Welsh, the Giants were determined to claim the one spot left in the Nottingham finals next weekend. Even when Coventry attempted to ruffle their composure, the Giants stuck to their job. And with Theo Fleury pulling all the strings, they kept up the scoring, with Colin Shields claiming 2 of the goals. The 7-3 scoreline made tonight's final home match against Edinburgh simply a formality, but the Giants want to end the home season with another win.
Obviously it's nice to have the league title in our back pocket, but that's the first piece of the puzzle for us. Anything could happen in a 6-game playoff, but the guys rallied together right from the start. When we played in Coventry and in Cardiff, we knew it was a tough schedule, but that's why I'm real proud of those guys in the dressing room. They persevered, and at the end of the day, Gary, we deserve to go to the Final Four, and I'm glad that the fans here at home were able to see it, and for us to show our appreciation to them.
In GAA today, Tyrone beat Antrim in the Under-21 Football Championship semi-final. The score, Tyrone 0-13, Antrim 0-11. In rugby, the Heineken Cup quarter-final between Toulouse and Leinster ended in a terrific away win for the Irishmen by 41 points to 35. Ireland captain Brian O'Driscoll among the try-scorers. The game between Munster and Perpignan has just started. Meanwhile, Ulster back Paddy Wallace is unlikely to join French side Castres in spite of spending 5 days with the club. Wallace, who can play out half and full-back, had hoped to get some first-team action in France, but Ulster are reluctant to release him from a contract which still has 2 years to run. In motor racing, Jenson Button is on pole for tomorrow's Australian Grand Prix, while locally Jim Hutchinson demolished the opposition to win the sports car race at Kirkeston this afternoon. Jonathan McGall returned to Formula Ford after a 10-year break and won, and Michael Leonard took the supercar honours. And on 2 wheels, Slovakian rider Martin Kohat took 2 victories and a 3rd place to win the John Donnelly Motocross at Downpatrick. Portavogie rider Robert Hamilton won the other race. Well, that's all the sport for the moment, but we'll have the best of the weekend action on Sport on Sunday around 6:30 tomorrow. But for the moment, it's back to Gillian.
Thank you very much, Gary, and that's all from both of us this evening. The local weather forecast is coming up next. Bye for now.
The UTV weather is sponsored by Progressive Startup Savings Account for Children, getting the savings habit up and running.
There's more unsettled weather on the horizon, with showers or longer spells of rain for all of us. And tonight, showers will give way to more persistent and at times heavy rain. Overnight, temperatures will fall to around 4 Celsius, that's 39 Fahrenheit. So a rather wet start to the day tomorrow, but the overnight rain will clear eastern parts of the province through the morning. And then a mixture of sunshine and showers for the afternoon, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder here and there. The best we can expect from temperatures is about 11 Celsius.
The UTV weather is sponsored by Progressive, your homegrown building society.
If you would like more information about the weather for today and the week ahead, you can call us on 09001 50 55 50.
Gambling in Northern Ireland, the stakes are raised in poker.
Gambling, and I think poker in particular, has come out of the back streets and is seen now as more socially acceptable.
But is poker legal?
She showed me a warrant, told me that it was an illegal gaming club and they were here to close it down.
Dodgy dealing, Insight Monday, 8 o'clock.
The UTV ski weather with BMIBaby.com.
It'll be a rather unsettled picture across northern Europe on Sunday and Monday with some blustery showers on the cards. Further south, it should be drier with some sunshine. Tomorrow's chart lets us see the unsettled weather towards the north. High pressure is in charge further south, so any fronts here will be somewhat weaker. We'll see fronts slipping southwards on Monday, but with high pressure still in the vicinity, they should be fairly showery affairs. So there'll be some sunny spells in the Italian Alps over the next few days, but equally we'll see some wintry showers. There's plenty of sunshine to be enjoyed at the moment in the resorts, although some of the lower slopes could benefit from a little more snow. And it's a similar story in the French Alps, with sunny spells and a few wintry flurries over the coming days. In the French resorts, conditions are ideal at the moment, with plenty of dry, bright weather. The slopes are looking healthy too, with well over 2 metres on the upper slopes at Alpe d'Huez.
The UTV ski weather with BMIBaby.com, the airline with tiny fares.
What is that? It's a bubble. The bubbles are melting.
Delicious aero bubbles melted to pure chocolate pleasure. Have you felt the bubbles melt?
The perfect bank robbery is about to begin.
Find me a way in, or I will kill you, children. Change your plans.
Firewall.
How to sit on a chair. 1. Get on hands and knees. 2. Grab chair and pull up. 3. Then climb. Any way you can. Now you see why Pampers Active Fit's improved absorbent system absorbs better than before, even upside down. New 360-degree absorption. We're head over heels too that you voted Pampers Active Fit Best Nappy at the Mother and Baby Awards.
No, darling. The taxi's here. I'm out the door right now. I'm stuck in traffic. Listen. Now I'm held up by roadworks.
Why rush when the fresh and fruity fragrance of New Lenore in the Pink makes getting ready the best part of going out? New Lenore in the Pink. The pleasure's all yours.
Selected half-price wines. Fair enough. You like to raise a glass. We like to lower a bottle. Tesco. Every little helps.
Can I have a cappuccino?
£1.50, please.
My loyalty card, it's full.
In that case, it'll be £3, and I'll need the cup back.
What? You don't expect to be punished for loyalty, but that's exactly what some mortgage providers do. The good deal you got at the start often gets worse the longer you stay, but at Ulster Bank it's different. So if your deal with Halifax, Abbey, First Trust or Northern is ending, call 0800 704 704 and switch to Ulster Bank. They'll beat your new monthly repayments or give you £250.
Let's do things differently. Ulster Bank.
It's the Charles Hurst Toyota approved used car event. It's back. It's bigger than ever. So big we've moved to the King's Hall, Belfast. Over 150 Toyota approved used cars. Save up to £4,000. Wednesday the 5th to Saturday the 8th of April. The Charles Hurst Toyota event.
You'll be sick as a parrot if you miss it.
The 70s are back with tomorrow's Sunday Express and Volume 1 of our free 70s Classics double CD. It's packed with 70s artists and hits, and it's free in tomorrow's Sunday Express, with Volume 2 in next weekend's Sunday Express.
Express delivery.
Falling on deaf ears, a survivor on the stricken Gulf pleasure boat tells ITV News of her desperate plea to the captain not to set sail with so many passengers on board.
I asked the captain, is it safe to go? If you are sure we are safe to go, then we go. But the problem is already here. I know that we are overloaded.
It was a boat built for 100, but there were dozens more on board. The Aldana sank with the loss of at least 57 lives, 12 of them British. The captain is being questioned by police. Also tonight, troubled trip, more protests, mar Condoleezza's visit, but she says they don't worry her. This will hurt. Britain's dentists sign new contracts and warn of chaos ahead. And Gretna's fairy tale, the Scottish minnows are through to the cup final. Good evening. A waitress on board the pleasure boat, which sank off the coast of Bahrain, has exclusively told ITV News how she begged the captain not to set off on the fatal voyage. Nanette Salgado from the Philippines says her concerns that the boat was dangerously overcrowded were shoved aside. At least 12 Britons were among the 57 confirmed dead. Investigators are still trying to find out what caused the vessel to capsize and are still questioning the captain, who it's reported wasn't properly licensed. From Bahrain, Julian Mannion reports.
Helpless by the shore, the restaurant boat that became a tomb. Today, divers were still working around the Aldana. All hope of finding survivors has long since gone. But there are still at least 2 people listed as missing, whose bodies have not yet been found. Work will continue until every one of the people who was on board that night has been accounted for. Viewed from here, the Aldana restaurant boat looks pitifully small. And the question that will certainly be asked is whether it should ever have been used for a party of about 130 people. Investigators are still trying to pin blame for the disaster. The man at the helm of the Aldana has admitted having no qualifications to captain a vessel. He is now facing a charge of manslaughter. But one survivor has told ITV News that the boat was heavily overloaded and swaying dangerously before it even left. Waitress Nanette Salgado says she appealed to the captain not to put to sea.
I asked the captain, is it safe to go? If you are sure we are safe to go, then we go. But the problem is already here. I know that we are overloaded. Why should we go?
A Briton who organised the party says there was no pressure on the crew to start the voyage. Simon Hill gave a graphic account of how he survived the disaster.
It happened so quickly. I can't explain to you how quickly. 1 minute we were stood talking and having a good time and enjoying a very nice evening. It was a pleasant evening. And then in seconds, it went very quickly. I looked and I saw people sliding down the boat to one side, through the gap, and before I knew it, I was in the water and underwater. And there were people everywhere in the water.
It must have been quite terrifying, wasn't it?
How can you explain it? Well, we knew there were people underneath. We knew that the amount of people on the boat, on the top, wasn't the same as the people that we knew were on the trip. We knew straight away that it was about half and half were split, and the people, we didn't see anyone that was underneath come out.
In the water, Nanette Salgado hung onto a life jacket while people around her struggled to stay alive.
Everyone was struggling to leave, so it is possible that somebody will get my life jacket. And I don't want to die. I think of my 3-year-old daughter still in the Philippines, and I don't want to leave her.
The sinking has brought tragedy to a number of British families, all in an accident which it seems could have been avoided. Julian Mannion, ITV News, Bahrain.
Anti-war campaigners have made their presence felt for the second day of the visit by American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. She was jeered by around 200 demonstrators as she met with Muslim leaders at Blackburn Town Hall. To the embarrassment of her host, Jack Straw, the booing continued throughout the hour-long meeting and the press conference that followed. Later, the Foreign Secretary and Dr. Rice travelled to Liverpool, from where our correspondent Tim Rogers joins us now. Tim.
Well, yes, it was from Liverpool where so many dreams began of the new world, and it's here that Condoleezza Rice is winding up her trip of the Northwest, presumably with dreams of going back there after what has been an uncomfortable couple of days. Blackburn Day 2, and the two were back in Blackburn. But so were the protesters, hundreds of them. Feelings clear, Condoleezza Rice not welcome here, although she and Jack Straw managed a wave and a brave face. At a news conference with the sounds of jeers in the background, they were asked if they'd been embarrassed by their reception.
I think people are simply expressing their views. That's just fine. I also know that when there are demonstrators, there are people who go into the streets to demonstrate. There are an awful lot of people who, in their own private ways, let you know how very welcome you are.
They said they were going to get busloads and busloads in, okay? Well, I didn't think they did very well. If they'd asked me, I would have done better for them.
Outside, the Muslim mayor of Blackburn was also trying to put a brave face on things, but not doing very well with the crowd either.
She has a lot of cheek being there. To bring her on as if she's a big hero and all that. She's nothing of the kind.
Her coming here sends a clear message out to the world that we are happy that she's come here, that Jack Straw has invited her here. But we're not happy that she's been invited here and come to this country.
Inside, a meeting was arranged with Muslim leaders from the community. She said it was productive and informative. They said they made their feelings clear.
The meeting has had an impact on her, and that is turned as a result to find solutions to the many issues we have actually brought to attention to her, particularly Guantanamo, Iraq and Palestine.
At the end of the day, and in Liverpool, away from protesters, the world's most powerful woman had time to contemplate times and struggles past. This, an exhibition on slavery. Perhaps it'll be left to history to record what real impressions she takes with her from the Northwest.
Oh dear, Tim, it all looked a bit painful for Condoleezza Rice. Do you think she wishes that she hadn't bothered coming?
Well, she came, she saw, she even got the T-shirt, the Blackburn Rovers T-shirt, in fact. But you do wonder, at the end of it all, whether she thought, blimey, I won't be going back to the northwest of England in a hurry. Jack Straw had had a marvellous time, apparently, when he went to Birmingham, Alabama, and he wanted to reciprocate by showing her multiculturalism at work in Blackburn. Unfortunately, while she did see some of that in some of the schools there, she also got that fairly rowdy reception when she came. However, there are some people, it's true to say, who were pleased to see her, who now feel that Blackburn has been put on the map, and they were delighted by her presence. But as I said in that report, one can only imagine what impressions she will be taking home with her tonight.
Indeed, Tim, thank you. Well, some other stories making the headlines tonight. A 15-year-old boy has been charged with the rape of an 11-year-old girl in a supermarket last month. The girl was shopping with her mother at the Sainsbury's store in Leamington Spa. She was followed into the store's toilets where she was assaulted. There was more violence on the streets of Paris this morning. Protesters vented their anger outside the Sorbonne University, which had been sealed off by police. Concessions offered by President Jacques Chirac were roundly rejected. Now, the loans row engulfing the Conservatives is showing no sign of abating this evening, with the party coming under increasing pressure to name its wealthy foreign backers. Parliamentary rules forbid donations to political parties from overseas. Rivals are accusing the Tories of bypassing the ban by accepting loans instead. But a party spokesman says they've been open and honest. Well, our reporter Paul Larsman is at Westminster for us now. Now, Paul, it has been another day again of mudslinging between these two parties, hasn't it?
Well, yes, the Conservatives are still refusing to name 10 people, some of them foreign, who have lent money to the party on the basis that they remain anonymous. Well, fair enough, you may say, a deal's a deal, but Labour are saying this is highly suspicious. They're asking, what have the Tories got to hide? And the Conservatives, well, they've retorted that actually their finances are much more fully disclosed than Labour's. So yes, the mudslinging goes on, but it's a little difficult to know exactly where it's sticking at the moment.
What's going to be the upshot of this? What's going to happen next, Paul?
Well, it could actually end up with the ordinary taxpayer paying for party political propaganda. David Cameron is meeting Tony Blair to discuss all this business of party funding on Tuesday, and he's got some ideas he wants to put forward. He wants a £50,000 cap on all donations. He wants no more of these private loans, and more controversially than that, he wants state funding, and he wants this to be based on the number of votes that a party won in the previous election. He's saying that each vote ought to be worth about 60 pence. So what would that cost? Well, there were 27 million votes cast in the last election. That would come in at about 15 to 16 million pounds each year that the taxpayer would be funding the political parties in the future.
OK, Paul, thank you very much. Controversial new contracts for NHS dentists came into effect today, with the government insisting they will prove a better deal for patients. Under the new terms, dentists will be paid a set wage and there'll be more emphasis on preventative care. But the British Dental Association says most of its members are extremely unhappy with the contracts, and there are fears they could stop taking on NHS work altogether. Here's Harry Smith.
It was designed to give more patients access to dental treatment on the National Health and make the system of paying for it simpler. But so far it's produced long queues of people trying to register as more dentists move away from NHS work altogether. And from today, the situation could get worse. The new contract which comes in today is designed to be simpler and fairer. Instead of having around 400 separate charges for different sorts of treatment, there will be just 3. Instead of being paid for each treatment they do, dentists will get a fixed sum, averaging about £80,000 a year, and that's guaranteed for 3 years. But in return, they will have to do an agreed amount of work for NHS patients, which will be measured in treatment units. But dentists say the contract will leave them with little time for preventative work, such as advising patients on dental care and diet, which won't count as a treatment unit.
If you want to encourage preventative care, then you've got to give some sort of inducement. The current version of this contract is entirely focused on output, but not prevention. So if you want to continue to earn your living on the NHS as a dentist, you've got to produce so many units of dental activity.
The Dental Association estimates that 1 in 10 of Britain's 21,000 dentists have refused to sign the contract, which means many patients will have to travel long distances for treatment, and waiting lists could be introduced in some areas. Harry Smith, ITV News.
Birmingham City have given themselves renewed hope of beating relegation and ensured that Chelsea fans will still be biting their nails in the Premiership run-in. They drew 0-0 with the league leaders at St Andrews. Del Horno did put the ball in the net for Chelsea, but the goal was disallowed for offside, a decision contested by Jose Mourinho. The result cuts Chelsea's lead to 7 points after Manchester United won 2-1 at Bolton. So here's a full check on the Premiership results. Arsenal were 5-0 winners against Aston Villa to keep the pressure on in the race for 4th place. Sunderland collected their first point of 2006 with a 2-2 draw at Everton. Portsmouth now have real hope of avoiding relegation after a 3-1 win at Fulham. And Liverpool are leading West Brom 2-0 in this evening's match. Reading were promoted last week. Now they are celebrating winning the Coca-Cola Championship. They thumped Derby 5-0, and Sheffield United's 1-1 draw at Stoke means Reading become champions. There were also wins for the 2 bottom clubs, Crewe and Brighton. And there were 3 matches in the Scottish Premier League. Dunfermline drew with Falkirk, Aberdeen won at Inverness, and Motherwell won 2-1 against Livingston. Now, Gretna's football fairy tale has continued with an historic day in the Scottish Cup. The former English non-league team have already been crowned 2nd Division champions in Scotland. Now they've become the first team to reach the Scottish Cup final from the division after beating Dundee 3-0 in today's semi-final, as Neil Roberts reports.
They've only been a Scottish football club for 4 years, but having crossed the border, they're now history makers. Gretna once graced the Unibond Premier League in England. Next season, they could be gracing the UEFA Cup. There was some fortune about their first goal in today's Scottish Cup semi-final. Kenny Duca's shot just crossing the Dundee goal line. but there was no doubt it was a goal, though a second-half penalty award was more dubious. Ryan McGuffey was the man who won it and the man who scored it. Gretna and Gretna Green is more famous as a traditional getaway for young lovers, but there was romance and heartbreak at Hampden Park. Barry Smith's unfortunate own goal sealing a 3-0 win for perhaps the most unlikely finalists in the history of the Scottish Cup. 6,000 Gretna fans greeted the final whistle.
Well, considering there was about 3 times the population of the village here, you know, it's fantastic.
This is unbelievable. The dream goes on, as it says in the T-shirts. It's just superb.
And if Hearts beat Hibs in tomorrow's semi, Gretna will be in Europe. Neil Roberts, ITV News.
Well done to them. Now, Bath are into the semi-finals of the Heineken Cup, despite finishing with 13 men at Leicester. 5 penalties from Chris Malone were enough to secure a 15-12 victory in a kicking contest with the Tigers. Andy Good scored 4 penalties for Leicester. Formula One, Jenson Button will start on pole position for the Australian Grand Prix tomorrow. It's the 3rd time the Englishman has claimed pole, but he's still looking for his first Grand Prix win in 102 races. The Honda driver was ahead of world champion Fernando Alonso, with his teammate from Renault, Giancarlo Fisichella, qualifying in 3rd. Well, you can see the race live on ITV1 at 4 o'clock in the morning, if you can stay awake. Now, Brazil's first astronaut has arrived safely at the International Space Station 2 days after blasting off from Kazakhstan. Marcos Pontes was sent along with a Russian-American crew to relieve the station's current occupants. It's only a flying visit by the Brazilian. He'll return to Earth in 8 days' time. His colleagues will have to cope with cramped conditions on board for another 6 months. Here's Philip Ray-Smith.
The Russian Soyuz rocket may have a technical heritage dating back to the 1960s, but since the shuttle disaster of 2003, it has been a lifeline to the International Space Station, bringing both crew and supplies. And at just after 5 o'clock this morning, a tense mission control in Korolyov, just outside Moscow, watched as the latest Soyuz mission docked successfully with the space station high above the skies of southeastern Europe. First through the airlock was the first Brazilian in space, Lieutenant Colonel Marcos Pontes.
Brazilian Space Agency astronaut Marcos Pontes, the first Brazilian to fly in space, being greeted by MacArthur and Tokarev.
And as you'd expect from a member of his football-obsessed nation, his first action was to flag up support for his country's side in the upcoming World Cup. A happy moment for his wife Fatima. For the president of the Brazilian Space Agency, it was something approaching childlike delight.
Look around. You are in the ISS.
The Brazilian will stay on the space station for just 8 days, but for cosmonaut Pavel Vinogradov and astronaut Jeff Williams, this will be home for the next 6 months. Philip Ray-Smith, ITV News.
And that's just about it from us. I'll be back with the late news here on ITV1 at 11:20. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Powergen.
Hello, good evening. Another showery day tomorrow. In fact, on balance, probably rather more showery than it was today, and feeling a little colder tomorrow for most of us as well. Most of the showers overnight tonight will be up in the north and western Britain, 1 or 2 longer spells of rain coming in there. A little patch of rain in the southeast corner too for a while. Everywhere in between, the showers you've got now will gradually die away for a while overnight. And then tomorrow, even the southeast, that was basically dry today, will see 1 or 2 showers tomorrow afternoon. And the further north and west we go, the more frequent the showers will be until we get into Scotland, where you'll have a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain, even some sleet up on the hills. As I've said, it will be a bit cooler for us all tomorrow, especially so up in the north there, a puddle of cold air across Scotland, 6 degrees at best.
Positive energy from Powergen.
Hi there, what about you? If you fancy a bit